Hello everyone, Dr. Kellie Cassidy, clinical psychologist and owner at Cassidy Psychology in Mount Pleasant and Canning Vale. Today I've posted an interesting thing for this post and a bit of a statistic, one that we can't really escape. 10 out of 10 of us will die. It's inevitable that one day that's going to happen, and unfortunately I tend to find that creates a lot of anxiety for some people. And in doing so, it actually gets in the way of them living. So the thing that they're so worried about might as well happen because they're not living their life to its full, and they're not flourishing within their life. We tend to find, as psychologists, we find that anxiety about death and dying underlies a lot of other mental health conditions. People who often come to us with health anxiety or having panic attacks, depression, certainly PTSD, lots of different things like that. Sometimes when we kind of dig down and we look a bit deeper, we find that it's this fear about dying. Now, it kind of makes sense. Obviously, we've got this don't get killed machine built into our brains. We have that survival instinct, and it's really, really important. But when it goes into overdrive, when we think about it too much, it becomes problematic. So again, as I was talking about probably a few weeks ago now, thinking is often part of the problem, not the solution. And when it comes to death, that equally applies. So what we need to do to overcome this fear that we might have about death, we need to be able to accept it. We need to be able to see that death is simply a part of life. It's inevitable, as I said before, and it's out of our control because we don't know when it's going to happen. Now, we all hope that we're going to live a really long and happy life and die well into our old age, but we simply don't know. And the more that we can accept that uncertainty, the more we can live. So I want to talk about a couple of ways to go ahead and do that, how we might make that happen. But to do it, first of all, you need to think about, well, what are your beliefs about death? How comfortable do you feel with it? Are you okay with it? If I ask you to think about your death right now, what does it bring up? How does it make you feel? Even, when I said that statistic before, you will die. How do you feel when I say that? If you're completely fine with it, chances are you're probably not fearing death, and some of these tips may not be all that helpful. But if that does kind of resonate with you, if you are a person that tends to worry about when you're going to die or what might happen and those sorts of things, then listen along and maybe try out some of the things that I've got to say today. The first one is all about what we call exposure. Allowing yourself to think about death and be surrounded by death, in a sense. And that might be simply by watching books or movies, reading books, watching movies, different things that talking about the topic of death. And getting your comfort level up in that way. It might be through thinking about planning your own funeral, what song you want to play there or what you want to happen. It might be through thinking about your will or an advanced care directive and how you want the end of your life to happen. So there's certainly things, or having conversations, I guess, with people about death and dying. Interestingly, they've even started to introduce something called a death cafe, where you can go and have these conversations with people, which is an interesting topic. I must make sure I put it up on our Facebook page. So that's the first one. Expose yourself to it and get yourself thinking about it. Another way to expose yourself is a really interesting website that I've come across. It's called We Croak. And the concept behind this is that you sign up to it and they will send you randomly 5 times a day messages that get you to think about death and dying. So there might be a quote or some other sort of statement, basically, that gets you to contemplate it at that time, your own mortality. Now, I know that can sound a little bit morbid and kind of thinking, oh, what's that all about? But it's a really good way to surround yourself by this and get comfortable with it and be okay accepting that death's going to happen at some point. Okay? And finally, the last one is, my suggestion is to write your own eulogy. Now, the purpose behind that is more about developing a sense of meaning for your life. Think about if people were to stand up and read a eulogy about you when you die, what do you want them to say? What do you want your life to stand for? What sense of purpose or meaning do you want them to be conveying to everyone who's listening at your funeral? Again, sounds a bit weird, but it can be a really, really valuable exercise to work through. And the thing about it is, once you've written it and once you know what you want people to say, I want you to actually assess, does that match what I'm doing in my life right now? Does that resonate with how I'm living my life? Am I actually on track for people to say that when I die? Because if you're not, then make some readjustments. Have a think about what you can be doing differently to ensure that you're living that life the way you want to. And in doing so, I could almost guarantee you that you're going to be less worried about dying. So they're my ideas for you if you're having a bit of anxiety about death and dying. If it's a bit more severe than that, as always, I encourage you to go and speak with a psychologist about it. As I said, it often underlies bigger problems like depression and anxiety and PTSD. See how you go with that. Let me know if there's any questions, by all means. And really just work on accepting that in order to live, we've got to go hand in hand with death. And that's okay. It's okay to be okay with that. You know, as I said, it's going to happen to us all. I hope that's helpful. As always, here at Cassidy Psychology, we're working together with you to help you flourish and thrive. I will look forward to speaking with you again very soon, but bye for now.